Gorilla Tag started as a small indie game on SideQuest with nobody more than a few people, all up until March 5th of 2021. Just 24 days after the game's initial release, one player changed the course of the entire game's history, J-Man Curly. The very start of Gorilla Tag was very small with only 2 maps, excluding the Hat Room. After the initial release, there came one new map called Canyons and a few bug fixes all the way up until September 19th of the same year, the City Update. This update came with the City map, which added plenty of new cosmetics and an in-game currency system called Shiny Rocks. This feature, while being one of the most important features to the game, is also one of the key leading factors leading up to the downfall. This year would by far be the best year for Gorilla Tag speaking in terms of the community. Later that year would come the Christmas update for Gorilla Tag. This update would introduce many new players to the game because of an upcoming YouTuber they watched called J-Man Curly. On Christmas Day that year, hundreds of kids would get new headsets just to solely play Gorilla Tag. During 2022, it would start the downfall of Gorilla Tag. This year would start the downfall of Gorilla Tag because of one simple reason. Kids. For all who play Gorilla Tag, we know that kids don't have logic and their whole world is centered around them. 2022 was the year that Gorilla Tag started to gain its reputation for being the most toxic community in VR, and we gained the saying that every lobby you go into will have a kid saying the N-word. But we can't talk about 2022 without mentioning the in-game updates this year. This year would start bringing more stuff to seasonal updates. One great example of this was the change of the Halloween 2022 update compared to the 2021 update. One last thing about this year I'd like to mention is the content during this time. This year would introduce the greatest, if not some of the greatest, content creation as the game started to grow and many new people of all ages were introduced to the game. Another thing that rose is ghosts. You couldn't go any day in Gorilla Tag without seeing a ghost video pop up. This year would introduce thousands to the game on Christmas, thus bringing more attention to the ghosts and bringing a lot of new kids to the game. 2023 would be a fast decline for this game. This year started off pretty good, all until the revamp of Canyons came out. This would begin what I like to call the reformation of Gorilla Tag. This year would begin to start the trend of revamping the OG maps and causing outrage in the community, especially with the OG players. One of the biggest features this year would be the closing/revamping of caves. In April to May of that year, the cave's entrance would be closed off. The coming month would introduce the beach map, which introduced the swimming mechanic to Gorilla Tag. This map is what I believe to be the point where Gorilla Tag became the game that we all come to love or hate today. The beach map was incredibly well received by the overwhelming amount of kids in the game, while a lot of the original players showed hatred towards the map since they thought it made the game too complicated. This year's content for the game introduced something that would permanently scar the content creation for this game, that being ghost YouTubers. But we'll get into that later. This year, some of the most creative ideas appeared in this time as people were using the new features added to the game to make content. Even if they didn't like how complicated the game was, they still helped the game grow. This year would be the first ever Gorilla Tag live event under the name of We Are VR. This event would bring absolute chaos to the Gorilla Tag servers, bringing 250,000 people online at the same time. This event would also bring the first ever event cosmetics with a closable headset and the We Are VR badge. Aside from this event and evolving content this year, many players would begin to be enraged by the cosmetic prices rising this year. Many players pointed out the fact that if you save up for 2 months to get a cosmetic worth 5,000 shiny rocks, you wouldn't be able to buy another cosmetic the next month with 5,000 shiny rocks since you only get 100 per day, leading some players to stop buying shiny rocks to protest Gorilla Tag so they would lower the price for the cosmetics. But enough on the negatives. Let's move on to 2024. This year by far had the biggest difference between the ups and downs. So let's start off with the ups. This year's updates for the game were just beautiful. They were amazing. The Notwares update was probably one of my favorite updates of this year. This update has also brought some of my favorite cosmetics, like the grass hat and the fishbowl hat. The other update I appreciate this year was the science update in January. This update didn't really bring anything too special except for the rotating map feature. The early rotating maps were so eerie to me. 2 notable examples of this are the pyramid and swamp maps. These maps literally are the embodiment of a liminal space. A big factor that I think contributed to this was the closed skybox that you could actually touch unlike other maps. Yet another update I want to mention this year was the monkey blocks. The original attic revamp was great, but the revamp of it probably was in the top 10 updates of all time. This update had a good chance to revive the community, but sadly did not. Moving on, this year was crazy for the community. In my opinion, the only good event this year was Gorilla VR GT. While there were plenty of flaws with this, it also brought so many people together as well as bringing attention to the team members that made the reveal, like the animators. But moving on to the downs of this year, so many people got exposed, like Cooper and Stubway and others saying the N-word and such. Pursuit VR slipped making a slight comeback just to fall off again, and another 2 people faking death. But aside from that, the updates this year, past May, were flat out the worst updates of all time for the game. So many unwanted features were added to the game along with so many bad and dead maps. Notable bad features this year were rearranging of Stump, caves flooding, and most of all the city revamp. Well, that was it for this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy and appreciate the support on my last video. And remember, join the Discord to get the OG world so you can cement your mark in the history of this channel. Remember to subscribe and like, and goodbye everybody.